Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of my Little Big Year, where I'm trying to see how many birds I can document here on my home patch in eastern Massachusetts in 2024. So today's April 1st and it's actually quite a nice day, but the last 2 weeks or so here in late March have been extremely windy and rainy here at Horn Pond. In fact, we've had a lot of flooding. The water levels are very high. Some of the paths are actually been covered with water at times. So to be expected occasionally here, and despite the weather, we've had some good birds show up. So some early spring migrants are starting to trickle in, and really it's an exciting time of year to be a birder because you know that the weather's getting nicer, the days are getting longer, and you know this huge amazing event of spring migration is going to be happening over the next couple of months. So there's kind of this feeling of anticipation. So let's jump right into the birds. The first bird I want to show you is this tree swallow, which is an expected spring migrant here. They get to be pretty common in the spring, and they sometimes breed here as well. So the tricky thing with swallows, of course, is if you want to photograph them, it's really important to get them on a perch. They're very difficult to catch in flight. So this is actually the first tree swallow of the year here, and it was nice that it took a break from its long migration to sit on this post here for a little while and let me film it. Next up is this black-crowned night heron, which showed up back on March 15th, and that's actually the earliest date that one has ever showed up here at Horn Pond, at least according to the eBird records. These are really striking birds, black and white, and they become more common here in recent years. They're actually nocturnal, as the name night heron would imply, and so during the day they're pretty lethargic. They just perch in one spot, and they can be kind of difficult to see because they don't move around at all. They're actually remind me a little bit of owls in that respect, but fun birds to see, and we'll be seeing, I think, a lot more of them throughout the spring and summer. This is a golden crowned kinglet. Actually showed one of those in my previous video, so it's not a new one for the year, but anytime I get the opportunity to catch one that's sort of at rest and not bouncing around like crazy, it's great because they are difficult to video. Next bird that I want to talk about is this lesser scaup that showed up here in one of the lagoons, and this is actually a less common bird, so a really nice one to get. Here at Horn Pond, we'll get maybe a couple of them every year, so a really good one to get on the list now. Scaup can be quite tricky to identify because there's two species of scaup, lesser scaup and greater scaup, and they have basically identical plumage at all times of year. So to separate them, you need to look at some subtle cues of size and shape of the head and the bill and things like that. I think head shape is the most reliable way to separate them, and I've made a little diagram here. So the rectangle around the head of this lesser scaup is taller than it is wide. They have kind of a tall, narrow head. On a greater scaup, the same rectangle around the head would be more of a square, or it might even be a little bit wider than it is tall. This American goldfinch is still in its rather drab winter plumage. It's always fun to watch them molt into their bright yellow plumage in the spring. I'll try to get some video of a nice bright goldfinch in a month or so. Another recent arrival is a Virginia rail, which has taken up residence in this really small cattail marsh that we have here on site. Rails, of course, are tricky to see because they move around in the reeds and are basically hidden from sight, and you hear them a lot more than you see them. I was able to catch this one out in the open for a little while and get this video, which was nice. I think they tend to be more active and easy to photograph when they first show up because they're moving around actively, trying to find a mate and defending their territory. This pied-billed grebe has been hanging around my home patch for months now, but I just haven't been able to get any really good video of it. I'll keep trying, but this clip is good enough to put it on my little big year list. The American tree sparrow is actually a wintering species in Massachusetts. They're not very common on my home patch, so I was glad to catch up with one before it heads north to breed way up in northern Canada. In this video clip, you can see a couple of the field marks for this species, which are the rusty cap, the spot in the middle of the breast, and the bicolored bill, where the top is gray and the bottom is yellow. Great blue herons are year-round residents at Horn Pond, except when we have very cold winters. This was a mild winter that we're just finishing up, so there have been a few around. Now more are going to be passing through in the spring. They're obviously pretty easy to spot due to their very large size and their tendency to stand around in the open. White-throated sparrows are one of the most common birds on my home patch all winter long. They're going to be leaving in a few weeks to go on to their breeding grounds. They'll be back in the fall. And finally, the last new species for this video is going to be this downy woodpecker, which is a common year-round resident on my home patch, and in fact, just about everywhere in the US and Canada. The red patch on the back of the head means that this one is a male. Okay, that wraps up another episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you've been enjoying this content, and if you're curious how many birds I'm going to end up seeing this year in my home patch, please subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. Thank you, and see you next time.